Once the amount is increased to a certain, threshold where the fraudsters feel that they got enough out of you and what they believe is possible to get out of you, they take the money and they run.
Okay, big problem. Why are traders seeing their funds frozen and accounts locked on centralized exchanges? Well, today we put this question directly to OKX Europe CEO, Erald Ghoos. Now remember to click and subscribe and enjoy the show.
Hey, Erald. Thank you for coming onto the show.
Hi, Nori. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So let's get right into it. I want to get your take on this. So I'm seeing online an increasing amount of users complaining about account fees from certain centralized exchanges. Okay. And obviously for them, it seems that it's come out of the blue and the whole process is not very transparent and they can't access their funds. So obviously you can imagine how upset they are. And from the crypto side of things, this is a bit of a concern because obviously centralized exchanges have the ambition to try to rival high street banks in the future because you offer debit cards and credit cards. So my first question for you is, what do you think is driving this trend of this perceived heavy-handedness from certain centralized exchanges on freezing accounts and things like that?
Thank you for that question, Nori. And there's quite a little bit to unpack in that. First and foremost, I think we need to look into the absolute number of things, right? We do indeed see online an increase in users bringing more friction to the attention and sharing that they're experiencing friction. Now, because of the increased crypto adoption that we see globally happening, right, this upward trend in more and more people, both retail and institutional, getting into the crypto space, more of them or less of the degens, more beginner users who have a little bit of less of an experience with crypto, they are feeling and experiencing the first time a friction on crypto exchange. Now, the absolute numbers we do see increasing, but then if we look into, from a centralized exchange point of view, into the relative numbers, we don't agree with that trend that it's increasing, right? So there we do believe that it's a much more managed experience than what might be shown online. Now, taking it a little bit a step back on what is happening actually and why are users experiencing friction. So there are two things. First thing is exchanges, centralized exchanges, they might believe that somebody is the bad person. Somebody is doing something bad that should not be allowed in a regulated crypto exchange. The other area is we might believe that you are a victim of some people who have some bad intentions. Now, those two things, let me unpack those also a little bit. When we believe that you might be involved in certain bad actions, it might be that there's two things, right? It might be compliance related or it might be fraud related. On compliance side, could be that there are indications that you are involved or somebody is involved in money laundering or terrorist financing. Now, because of the whole regulatory efforts that are now happening and bringing crypto more mainstream, we also, of course, have to follow more crypto regulations in different jurisdictions. So different crypto exchanges are now getting regulated. They're getting valuable licenses across the world, like we also as OKX have been pursuing in several jurisdictions. That also means that if we want to be able to offer our services to the more general public, to institutional traders, we need to be able to demonstrate these licenses, that are now available. Hence, and therefore, we also have to comply with the licensing requirements, meaning having controls in place to prevent money laundering, to prevent terrorist financing. That, of course, also will result in a certain very, very, very small, tiny percentage in friction for users, where in case there are indicators that somebody might be involved in such activities, we might need to ask more information. The ask that we then have is, please do comply with those asks. Centralized exchanges will do in-app notifications. They will send you emails saying like, please provide an evidence of who you are, where your source of wealth is coming from. Some people, they don't really follow up on it. It might end up in spam. People might ignore it until the last moment. Not the right action, of course, because then it will result by a lot of centralized exchanges in some account freezing. Even it might be temporarily, but that disrupts a lot of people's trading experience.
So now, Erald, can I just cut you in just to sort of clarify? So if people do get an email for like the travel rule, whatever it is, about whatever funds have come in from the centralized exchange that they're using, you would advise like just promptly reply to that, promptly promptly act upon anything like that.
Yes, in order to prevent any friction, it's advisable to comply with this as soon as possible. Now, the other area where we see is that users might actually be a victim, where in that sense, we also take some measures on our end to prevent users from losing assets, from them being taken advantage of. Now, people might not know it, but there has been in the last year, a year and a half ago, probably coinciding with the whole AI, artificial intelligence, getting much more accessible. But we have also seen a big uptick in organized fraud farms. Fraud farms are very well-funded criminal organizations where we have seen that some of those fraud farms, mainly located in Laos and or Cambodia, who are involved in quite a bit of human trafficking, who are employing thousands and thousands of people, and then following real, advanced scripts in how to defraud people from usually first world countries, right? The way how it happens is, or they're doing it via investment scams, where the scenario is that they promise you high returns on some investments. The first 2 times when you invest, you're making profit. You're actually seeing on some fake website that you are making some gains there. Once the amount is increased to a certain threshold where the fraudsters feel that they got enough out of you and what they believe is possible to get out of you, they take the money and they run, right? This is not necessarily based on crypto, but they use a lot of exchanges, centralized, decentralized, for people to move funds into those fake trading platforms. That's one scenario. Another scenario is the romance scams, where those organized fraud firms reach out to people on social media, WhatsApp groups, Facebook. They also use dating apps like Tinder or all those other ones, where they are promising somebody, like forever love. People then get interested in those perpetrators. They come always up with like a story where it's like, oh, you have to come over, or I will come and visit you, but I have some financial difficulties. Can you help me out? And they send money, and that's how also people get defrauded. So those are 2 scenarios which we have seen occurring a year and a half ago quite a lot, that people were our users. They are asked to open an account on a centralized exchange solely for the purpose of moving funds into those. We then also took immediate action. We set up our AI team, machine learning, to come up with parameters and trends that can indicate who those victims would be. Of course, we then also have much more insight in where the money is going from. We can also learn from data crunching and data analysis. We can spot certain trends. So in that case, we then also might add friction and even freeze an account from the moment we realize, or our algorithms realize, that hey, you might be a victim of a fraud here. You might not even be aware about that you are being defrauded. Let's freeze it, right? Let's freeze your account to prevent and protect you from further losing money. Then what we will do is, or what other exchanges will do, is they will reach out to the user saying like, hey, we've frozen your account. We probably believe that there might be something suspicious going on that you might not even be aware of. Please help us, to detect what's going on. Answer a couple of simple questions. Be collaborative, and we know, we might release your funds, we might be able to get some of your funds back, but just in order to protect users. So those are what I believe are the most occurring scenarios where users receive friction and might have their account frozen. A, we believe, or there might be some indicators where we think you might be a bad person or involved in some things that are not allowed according to the regulations. The other thing is, work with us. We're trying to protect you here, right? Maybe you have been a little bit sloppy with your passwords. Maybe somebody got a hold of your password. We see that you always log in your account during the daytime in Belgium. Suddenly, like 10 minutes after you logged in from your account in Belgium, we see that you're now logging in from, let's say, Zimbabwe in the middle of the night, right? There's something, maybe that might be, worth asking you, right? These are measures that we then take to add friction to your account to prevent you from losing money.
Understood. Very interesting, actually. I like the fact that you're using AI to try to obviously prevent people from losing money and protecting. And of course, I guess there's some growing pains, right? There might be some false flags, but
yes,
obviously,
of course, what the main goal is to reduce the false positives. We are constantly evolving our scripts, our methodology, our learning in the machine learning and AI to stay on top of it, right? Like also fraudsters and scammers, they're also very sophisticated and they continue also to advance in their techniques. So our models also have to be constantly being readjusted. Since we took all those actions, what we see is we were quite active and on top of this AI fraud that we saw happening a year and a half or a year ago. Since then, what we also have seen is that they shifted completely. I don't think that those fraud farms completely disappeared, but I also think that they probably feel that those advanced global exchanges like OKX with huge tech force, that it's probably not the best route to funnel their victims through. Maybe they have gone off to other exchanges, maybe they have gone to using smaller local or regional exchanges who don't have that AI and technological capacity yet to protect their users. Maybe they just shifted from the bigger exchanges to more of the local regional exchanges. But it's a trend that we have been observing over the last year and a half quite a bit. So initially we were quite heavy hit. Now we almost don't experience any organized fraud attacks anymore.
Can I just come in let's just really briefly paint the picture of what these fraud farms are. They're in places like Laos and Cambodia, and we're talking like a compound in the middle of in rural areas, and people that have been human trafficked and are made to work 16, 20-hour days. They're in a room somewhere. There's just a whole panels of mobile phones and stuff like that. These fraud farms are really, 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 really nefarious. They're so is OKX doing anything even above and beyond just protecting customers in working with to try and eradicate this problem in any way? Or
yes, absolutely. First thing is what our main goal is: protect them and our users, right? So the mechanisms and the friction that we have added some time ago, that has been shown results. The other things what we're doing is we're also working with the online blockchain technology companies like Chainalysis, Elliptic, because all those addresses that because of our advanced AI technology that we are seeing that are being used by those fraud firms where the victims are withdrawing funds to, all those accounts, we are first and foremost, we're blocking them on our side. We are informing those blockchain analytics tools like Chainalysis and Elliptic about, hey, this account is being used probably by organized fraud firms for those illicit activities. Plus then also we report it to our local regulators who will then also take further actions. So we do have the right escalation paths to make the necessary, law enforcement agencies aware about what is going on. So there we also definitely contribute. We help with user education to make sure that people groups who we believe might be a victim or fall victim to those organized fraud forums for investment scams or for romance scams, to inform them, like, guys, there is online fraud happening, right? Like, be careful, be mindful. So we also like select certain prevention measures to what we believe or delicate or sensitive users on our platform, where we let them go through an additional training or additional awareness that they have to go through before we allow them to withdraw, before we allow them to do certain activities, just in order to limit and reduce the risk of them falling victim to such groups. But in the meantime, because I'm also quite close and following up on that, there has already been some undercover YouTube investigations done where they sent somebody in some of those fraud forums, and it's shocking, like all those people, they're being actually trafficked into those things. They're not willing to participate in it. They are like taking their passport. Now you're gonna go. You read the script. You work with us. So those people are also victims, right? It's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen some of the buildings, like it's basically inescapable, really, because they have like
it is inescapable.
Barbed wires, and as Brian said, they take away the passports. I guess fraud is never going to be fully eradicated, but I think your point is that you make it as difficult as possible for these scammers and fraudsters to use OKX to do all these illicit activities.
Yes, and also we would like to spread the word. And I also think, and this is why I also want to bring it up here in the podcast with BeInCrypto, like the more people are aware about this, the more, like the notion, it spreads amongst people. Usually, we also have to be realistic. Most of the people who are into crypto, they know, right? It's more new people entering into crypto or who are being asked to open an account with us that are being lured in those kind of scams. It's not usually crypto native people or crypto educated people who would fall victim to such scams. So yeah. Maybe it's also good that more of the mainstream media helps with creating a bit more awareness about those fraud scams that are out there.
Yeah, understood. And I think you touched on it already in your answers, but just going back towards how OKX is working towards obviously improving response times. I think a lot of feedback I get from my friends, particularly people who are new to crypto, is that obviously centralized exchanges are much easier to use, but the negative parts are like customer service is still obviously not as good as, let's say, like TradFi, normal banks, things like that. So I wanted to ask you, like, what steps are OKX taking to improve, customer service and all these other issues people are facing?
Okay. I do think that if in my personal opinion, I do believe that the support that I get from the centralized exchanges sometimes even far exceeds the traditional finance banking customer support. Also, those banks, they are being plagued with huge overhead costs. They are also reducing the brick and mortar talk to a teller kind of thing. It's also more shifting online. In that sense, I do believe that also crypto exchanges like us, that we're a bit more advanced and doing a better job in self-service, helping or providing relevant FAQs online that people can, help themselves. And I also think the crypto generation is quite advanced in those things and very capable of helping themselves if you provide the right information online. Also, we are now expanding our local language support throughout Europe and also in other jurisdictions. so that our local European users can get served by themselves in their local language. So in that sense, we are also expanding our manual support, but we don't want it to come to that level, right? So self-service one, agents in case the user cannot self-service themselves. But what I also pointed out in the beginning is the reduction of the false positives, right? There is nothing more annoying for a user that he doesn't do anything wrong, he's not involved in any scam activities or anything what is illicit, and then still feeling friction. So in that sense, it's also like an ongoing exercise for centralized exchanges to continue optimizing rules, thresholds, fine-tuning everything, staying on top of all the new industry trends when it comes to fraud and scamming, but also staying abreast of new regulations and adjustments that are being made in compliance frameworks, that new countries that are being added to the sanction list or new sanction packages that are being developed, that all those things are being implemented. And of course, that will always result into some form of friction. This is also something that the traditional finance is experiencing. So in that sense, I do believe that specifically within OKX, that we're quite advanced in reducing the friction. And the number of friction that we have in the organization, it's far below 1% of our user base that is experiencing any friction. Of course, that also comes in with it's a whole life cycle, right? Like if you are quite conservative and in control of what you let enter through the door at the first phase during your KYC, and you have the right controls there, and you also allow certain users to operate within certain limits, that also reduces the friction afterwards. So this is something that I think we also got down to an art, is having the right life cycle experience from letting the right users through the door, being quite critical on who can come onto our platform, and then also gradually overseeing and monitoring the behavior of our users. That will reduce in less friction and less account freezing and closures over time.
Well, I'm sure like this friction is only going to increase as the crypto becomes macro and expands, and the mass adoption of crypto. And one thing, I suppose, we put out like different sort of feelers and ask crypto community questions before this interview. And one of the things that came in is that this perception that centralized exchanges are being more strict on the crypto users because they need to please regulators, because are the regulators holding the crypto industry to a stricter standard than they would traditional finance institutions? So that means then that you have to actually be stricter with your users to try to please these regulators in different jurisdictions.
I don't think they want to be stricter, but I do believe that there might be a bit of an educational work that is needed for certain jurisdictions around the world about the underlying technology of crypto and blockchain, right? As we know, with blockchain, it's immutable. Whatever happens on the blockchain, you can always detect, where transactions come from, where they're going, who's involved. So that's a technology that does not exist in the traditional finance space. So we are now being held as a crypto industry to the same standards. Just giving you an example, the travel rule that recently has been or is being rolled out across the world, which in my opinion, by the pure nature of blockchain technology, where we can track and trace all the money movements, it kind of like feels like, what are we trying to do there? Are we trying to use the traditional finance travel rule on a technology that kind of like already allows for it, at least if you work with regulated exchanges. Right now, over time, I believe the unregulated exchanges, they will disappear because they won't be able to get banking partners, they won't be able to get fiat on and off ramps. They will become a niche kind of setup. I believe in the near future, what we will see, centralized exchanges will all be regulated. They will all be held to the same compliance standards, KYC, transaction monitoring, having the right friction where it's necessary to safeguard users and to prevent money laundering and terrorist financing. So that means that there is a control at the front door about who enters. We are checking, the KYC documents, the identity documents. We are checking those people against sanctioned databases like WorldCheck. We are implementing all those controls. So if we then send money from person A to person B in regulated centralized exchanges through a blockchain technology where everything is visible, trackable, and traceable and immutable, that solves for the travel rule problem. So also when I speak with people in my network, I think there is quite a consensus that the travel rule is something where regulators might not really fully grasp the technology, the blockchain technology, and what exists and what it allows for. But I think maybe over time there might be a resolution coming on that side.
It'll take time. Like I actually know a few people that work in regulation and in the banking industry here in London, and they say they have the odd kind of meeting and seminar on blockchain technology. So it's kind of a learning process really for them as well to understand, as you said, the transparency of the blockchain and how that actually solves the travel rule issue. Now, I suppose we could...
Which is a positive thing to notice, right? That people are spending time and taking it serious and educating themselves about it. Can you, rewind to a couple of years when, talking about those same groups of people, there was like, blockchain, Bitcoin, it's going to disappear, it's nothing. Now they are doing the effort and taking the time to educate themselves with seminars about what it is. See, this is how fast we've gotten to where we are now. So I believe this is a serious win for us as an industry.
Yeah, no, it's good to pause and just reflect on how much has changed in such a short period of time. But I suppose, can we move on to, so OKX is currently expanding in the European Economic Area, the EEA. There's lots of really key markets with lots of expansion and adoption of crypto. And you've got MiCA, and then you've got the developments of MiCA 2 when it comes to how to regulate DeFi and stuff like that. So give us a little snapshot of where OKX is at the moment within the EEA and what key markets are you focusing on?
So a little bit of a step back. So back in January, 27th of January, we were one of the first global exchanges to receive our MiCA license. Very proud moment. So ever since then, the things that I personally as a CEO have been working on is growing and scaling the team, right? We have now the approval to operate within the whole EEA, the European Economical Area, which is a very, in terms of population, large area. It's more than 450 million people that fall in this group. So right now we can offer our products and our services to those groups of people. Now, Europe, the European Economical Area, complex and very diverse region. There's 30 different countries, 24 official languages, a multitude of different local currencies. It's not all the euro. We're still using, in some countries, the Czech crown, the Polish zloty, the Bulgarian leva. There's so many different localization efforts that we needed to do in terms of translating our product, providing the right local popular fiat on and off ramps, integrating with local popular eID solutions, integrating with government databases that will help with reduce the friction of onboarding our users, right? So that we don't have to ask every time for a proof of address or KYC documents, that we can work with those data brokers to facilitate and get the right data to onboard our users. So those were the first things that we have been doing, right? Then we have also been expanding our team in all the different European countries to provide with community support, with customer support, to provide users help and support in their local language. We've integrated now with multiple local popular payment methods, such as there is now Ideal in the Netherlands, Bankcontact in Belgium, Blik in Poland, right? Like I can go on, like we've done a massive work in the last, year or half a year in localizing our product. Now, we also have, or now close to obtaining, or we have already obtained our MiFID license. It just needs to go through some final regulatory approvals. Obviously, we have been working quite hard and strong with our team in the background now to come up with a perpetual derivative product that we hopefully will be able to launch soon, given the last regulatory approvals that we're waiting for. So in that sense, a lot of good news that is coming soon. Then on further optimizations or product releases, I don't want to do the announcement of the announcement, but there is quite a lot of product development and new features and functionalities that we will be releasing in Q3 and Q4 this year in Europe. We continue also to work and invest heavily on reducing any type of friction, to continue protecting our users from bad actors out there, fraud forums, hackers, to prevent account takeover. We're also continuing to invest in transparency. We publish every month our monthly proof of reserves to show to our users our stability, that the funds which they trust to us, that we keep them safe and according to all the regulatory standards. So those are the things that we continue in investing in quite heavily.
Well, here, look, we covered a lot there, from fraud farms in Cambodia right the way through to different regulatory advances that OKX are doing in Europe. So Erald, it's been lovely to chat to you here today on the BeInCrypto podcast, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's all.